All right, the gang is back for another talk about Masters of the Air. We just finished episode 9 of the series, and there's a lot to talk about. Once again, I'm joined by Jordan and LordHardthrasher. Why don't you guys go ahead and say hello?
Hello.
Howdy.
We covered the first 3 episodes, I believe, when we first started this, right?
Falcon, let's be honest. We didn't really cover the first 3 episodes. We thought we were going to cover the first 3 episodes. We actually just talked generic reaction. And I suspect we might do the same thing again, but let's try.
Well, honestly, I think that's more what people want, just our general opinion on the show itself, and just a little historical knowledge. So we don't have to be a strict, episode by episode review.
Oh, good, because I've had wine, so I won't remember all the episodes.
I've got a nice glass of Crown Royal here, so I'm enjoying my Wednesday afternoon. But anyway, my overall opinion of the show, just to kind of lay it out, the middle was all over the place. Very kind of disconnected, very really weird pacing. I don't want to say bad, but really weird pacing. But then the final episode was a great bookend to it. It was a damn good episode.
I think I agree with you. I thought the final episode was genuinely brilliant, and I thought the first 2 was seriously good. I mean, like up there with Band of Brothers, like the best of the episodes of Pacific.
Yeah,
I just thought those are fantastic. I am seriously confused about some of the rest of it, and I understand that a lot of this was filmed during COVID. And I think that probably shows, because it feels like they had a whole bunch of shots. They didn't really know how to string it together into a story. And that's a bit of a shame, really.
Yeah,
because like Top Gun, the 1986 movie, had the same issue, right?
Well,
Jordan, I'm sorry.
Jordan, retract your statement.
Could you just say that again? Because I didn't think I heard you before I arranged for the hit squad.
Thrasher's on my side in this one, bro.
Were you actually just rude about a Top Gun?
Well, no. Well, I thought that was like, I enjoy Top Gun, but like, if you watch or listen to all the making of that movie, they filmed all the flying sequences before they strung together the plot.
I'm okay. I'm okay with that. They may be pretty happy, so to speak.
There's a lot of inconsistencies with weapon loadouts and stuff that was messed up in editing and all that. But that's more of like a technical pacing issue. This is more of like a plot centered issue. If that makes sense.
I think, like personally, I think the weakest episodes were, let's see,
6, 7, and
6
8.
and 7 and 8. Yeah. Was 6 the one with the Black House or before or after? Because I thought that one was actually okay.
6 was the Flak House. 5 was the one where Rosie got into a dogfight with BF-109s and won.
Okay. Hang on. So, can I just say something from a historical point of view? Rosie actually did that in real life. I've seen a lot of criticism online saying, "Oh, that's so unreal! You couldn't possibly do it." Rosie actually did that. So what he was doing was not so much dogfighting as opening the angle up for his gunners.
Yeah,
and he genuinely did it on whatever it was, 3 engines or whatever it was.
And honestly, what the hell else are you gonna do, right? You just fucking go for it.
Fucking sane, right? Excuse me. I mean, it's a bit like there's bits. Pearl Harbor is objectively the worst film ever committed to celluloid, as anybody with a sense of cerebral cortex knows. But the bits of it that make it the most unrealistic are actually some of the bits that genuinely happened. And I think, unfortunately, Masters of the Air is suffering a bit from that, because that dogfight made everybody go, "Oh, really? They've completely jumped the shark." You actually did it. Yeah. Hey ho.
I feel like something that this show is lacking that kind of helped Band of Brothers become more believable to people is that there were no veteran interviews at the end. Like, talking about the events of the episode, like Band of Brothers had, Dick Winters come on and say, like, "Oh yeah, this is what happened in the show. Like, this is all true and shit."
They all dead.
Yeah, they're all dead now, so you don't get the benefit of that.
No.
I will say, for anybody who's watched all the way through and you want a little bit more context about the events of the show, there is a documentary that's considered like episode 10 on Apple Plus that is full of interviews with Rosenthal and Crosby. It's actually pretty damn good. It's about an hour long, narrated by Tom Hanks. Good stuff. Actually, I find that to be a little bit more entertaining than a lot of the episodes, but that's just me.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and I suppose the problem is if you're coming at it from somebody that loves aviation and somebody who is history centric, we tend to look for the detail and go, oh gosh, I wish they'd got X right. For example, all the way through this, they're flying B-17Fs. By 1945, there should be Gs. Does it fucking matter? Of course it fucking doesn't, except to you and me. But it worries for you and me. It does bother us, right? The silver paint thing, they shouldn't have been silver painted until later. I forget until the Fs. Till the Gs. Does it matter? Not really, to be blunt. But it's sort of a bit indicative about a certain degree of laziness that came. You guys picked up on the Master Sergeant's stripes for lemons during the last thing, right? And I kind of maybe that was a little bit of an alarm bell because a lot of this stuff they missed some bits. And I'll be honest, as a Brit, I sit there and go, I just walked away from the whole thing going, you bunch of assholes, because there was more going on than the 100th, and they showed more than the 100th, and that's fine. If you're going to do that, for goodness sakes, show off some of the stuff that was going on with your allies, because let's be blunt, the RAF dropped more bombs than the United States did during the course of the war. It was a big part of it. Maybe that would have been a good thing to do. Some of the 100th went on night missions with the RAF. They did like 10 missions. Wow. Never showed it. You're kind of like, maybe that would have been a good thing to do. I don't know. I feel a bit salty about it, but maybe that's because I'm a butthurt Brit. I don't know.
And I forget the name of the squadron, but there was even a squadron of the 8th Air Force that was equipped with mosquitoes under U.S. markings, and they would have mixed American and British crews going up to recon areas for weather conditions before the bombing raids.
Yeah.
Right.
That would have been cool to depict, or at least allude to. Just something like that. Yeah.
And I go back to we talked about it last time a little bit. I don't want to go and bang the drum too hard, but they got the Tuskegee Airmen in there, but they set them up on this really weird mission that didn't make a load of sense. And it was like watching that movie, The Red Tails, which is a bad film, extended out. And they could have done such a good job with it. I mean, imagine if they'd taken the Tuskegee Airmen. In fact, I think it should be a series in itself. Take the Tuskegee Airmen from the point of where do you sign on the dotted line to go and get flight training to then finally get deployed to discover that you're not going into combat because no one trusts you. There's a great story there to be told. Yeah. Instead of which we got this slightly bizarre, you're going to fly a mission that's really at the edge of your range that we would never ever send you on in real life because that would be stupid because you'd all die and you get shot down. And that's not what happened.
And it was on the second to last episode where they introduced all these guys.
Yeah.
Which is really silly to me.
Like personally, I am not bothered at all by the inclusion of the Tuskegee Airmen. But what does kind of upset me is that I almost wish that they had picked a random 8th Air Force fighter squadron to cover instead. If that
it would have been more sense. I mean, they would have had more interaction with the bomber crews and actually had some character development and whatnot.
Right, because then you could introduce them earlier in the series, right?
Yeah.
Now, and in all the weird cutting back and forth pacing of episode 6, 7, and 8, or 6 and 7, they could have introduced them possibly 2 episodes earlier.
I think they should have introduced them as early as episode 4 as like a side story. Yeah. I mean, the Pacific did that.
Yeah.
And say what you will about the Pacific because it has its own issues, but it was at least pretty coherent. Like you would jump between these multiple Marines who were in like different units, and it worked.
I've never understood the criticism of the Pacific jumping between people because that campaign was so relatively small numbers of troops.
Yeah,
and there was no one there that lasted the whole campaign. They just didn't. No. They all got wounded or killed. With this and a similar sort of struggle, I think you're exactly right. I think if you'd introduced the Tuskegee Airmen early doors and had them as a parallel story, you could have had a really cool, really rich story set there so that when they wind up in the power camp, it would make sense. Or you do it the other way, which is what Bucky's experience was he got shot down, wound up in a prisoner of war camp, and there were, I forget the name of the characters now, the 2 guys from the Tuskegee Airmen that were pals with him because they were in his room. right?
Oh, Alex
That,
Jefferson was one. Yeah.
yeah. And it would have been great because he could have just gone, well, oh, these are just guys. Oh, you're the Tuskegee. Oh, the Red Tails. I know you guys, and they could have moved on, right? And he could have got, would have worked. But anyway, there we are.
I think it was a missed opportunity. Yeah. I feel like there could have been another episode's worth of content, just kind of flesh out some of the side stories, like the two guys who get shot down and get picked up by the Resistance. They have their one episode,
and they just kind of like reappear.
Yeah, they just reappear at the base, like, oh yeah, they made it, without having like a proper climax. Yeah, that was weird. Could have had more. I mean, there was some good Buck and Bucky stuff. I think they were the most powerful, like the best characters in the show. But yeah, just one more episode with development and just to fill in a lot of the gaps would have been good.
Yeah, I mean, just a bit more time with it. I wonder if part of it was the challenge of trying to get it into just 9 episodes.
Yeah. I that was probably a budgetary thing, I would imagine. And I'm sure
Band
down the road
episode, so only 50 minutes?
Band of Brothers was a full hour to an hour and 30, and there were 10 episodes.
So the episodes were only like 50-ish minutes in this, except for the last one.
Yeah, there were a few episodes that got a little longer, but they were generally a lot shorter, and there was one less of them. So I think the Pacific was 11.
Yeah, so I think nine episodes probably hurts the show a little bit.
Yeah,
and especially because the runtime of each episode is like 50% less than Band of Brothers, right? So
yeah, definitely big factors in just how it was paced and everything. But I feel like during development, I mean, it's been in development hell for years, so I feel like there might have even been more intended to be in the series that got cut.
Yeah, I sort of feel like those middle episodes really did feel like designed by committee. And I know, on most US shows, you have an awful lot of writers getting involved. But the reason you have so many writers getting involved is because you're going to try and do, 5 series of 24 episodes. And I wonder if it might have been better with a smaller number of people and therefore 1 or 2 controlling voices. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, guys, release the Snyder cut. Like, seriously.
Yeah, right. I mean, turn it into an hour-and-a-half film, right? I think you've got some really good stuff there, and you could make it work. Or turn it into a 24-episode thing. Like, but this didn't. Yeah,
it's like in this weird limbo.
Yeah,
it definitely is, particularly for the history nerd. Because I mean, if you're going to do, they missed both somehow. They didn't quite get the history right, and they didn't quite get the drama right, and that's a cardinal sin. Like, I will watch Where Eagles Dare like for the whole of my life with Clint with his MP40 with the unlimited bullets in it, dropping into the Schloss in Austria for no damn good reason at all. Because it's a flipping amazing story, right? And it's brilliant to watch. It's got nothing to do with historical accuracy whatsoever. Who cares, right? It's got Clint in it. What's not to like?
Or the Great Escape. Same idea,
right? Yeah,
which is also oddly related to Masters of the Air. So.
Absolutely. Well, talk about storylines you missed. Because it wasn't just Brits that went out through the Great Escape. There were some Americans in there too. They got shot, but they were there. I go back to the Pearl Harbor treatment, right? I mean, that's a dreadful, dreadful movie, but historically it's quite accurate. One or the other.
Yeah.
Sure. Go on.
Oh no! I'm just saying. I'm just reflecting on it. It's like I would say this is better than Pearl Harbor at the very least.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Definitely. Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's better than Red Tails.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hate to say it.
Absolutely.
Red Tails should have been really good. Was dreadful.
There were episodes that I thought, like you guys said initially, there were episodes that I thought were genuinely good. Namely, the first 2. I would even say the first 4 in the last one.
The last one's brilliant. It's a really, really good episode.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. But and maybe I might, because I've only seen each episode one time since it's come out, so I'll probably give the series a watch again, or as to refresh my memory of it after our conversation now, but I could possibly see myself though rewatching it more than I rewatched the Pacific.
Ooh, bold claim. Bold
Hmm.
claim.
Fighting
Okay.
words.
Yeah, not because I don't like the Pacific, um, but like I think of all the series, like of all like Band of Brothers, the Pacific, um, I'll even count A Generation Kill. Like I've definitely seen Band of Brothers the most times, and I think I've maybe watched the Pacific all the way through like 3 or 4 times. But Band of Brothers I've seen maybe like 10 times.
Sure.
And Band of
And
Brothers was kind of made at a time like right on the heels of Saving Private Ryan, where it was like this lightning in a bottle. Like the veterans are still alive, giving good accounts. You
Hmm.
also have Steven Spielberg in his prime. Tom Hanks is fully involved, and it just was like everything lined up perfectly for that series.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And I know what you mean. I think with any historical drama that becomes a zeitgeist, and I also think there hadn't been an epic scale war movie, Second World War movie, when Saving Private Ryan came out for a while. You had Thin Red Line, but that was so 90s up its own arse art house shite. I mean, it was a good movie, right? It's great if you know what's going on, but if you're
Yeah,
after a war movie, it's not going to scratch your itch. I mean,
no,
really, you hadn't had something for like 10, 15 years that was worth watching. And suddenly it came along and you're like, holy moly, this story is still important. And these guys are still alive. And
Right.
I don't know, if you had a follow up series to this, like let's say you had a series on the Red Tails, it could probably work. I just, clearly it's an expensive thing to do, and that they're not going to rush to do another one anytime soon.
no. Part of the problem, I mean, HBO did not pick up Masters of the Air, I think, because the Pacific ended up not doing well financially. And I think a lot of the issues with the Pacific, I mean, I guess the issues with the audience who was watching the Pacific is that the Pacific was a completely different thing from Band of Brothers. Everybody expected a different band or another Band of Brothers and everything.
Well,
And
and it came out in the
that's
middle of the GWAT, right?
GWAT. Yeah. Yeah, that's
So
true.
like it was at a point when like the war was already becoming unpopular, whereas Band of Brothers came out before that.
Right
So
before nine
like
eleven, actually.
yeah, so like it was, and Tom Hanks said so himself. Band of Brothers was about like the mythology of war.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
it's Shakespeare. It's Shakespeare, like through and through, right? So like some like you're literally looking at like the rose tinted view of like these dudes, these handful of dudes that went over there and did a great thing, and mostly all made it back, right? As opposed
Yeah.
to the Pacific, which is like dark and gritty, and Masters of the Air, where a lot of these dudes didn't make it back, you know.
Yeah.
So
It
And
was a lot more grim.
there were bits of this where I thought they did a really, really, really superb job. I mean, I can't remember which episode it was in, but there's one where the bombers are landing and they're pulling the wounded out of the aircraft. And my God, that hit me in the as somebody that knows the history, that hit me absolutely in the feels, because that is a much more realistic presentation of a post-mission atmosphere on a bomber base than anything I've ever seen before. Because these boys came back shot, burnt, hurt, even if you weren't directly wounded. Things like just your ears were bleeding because you'd gone up and down too fast. Your jaw wouldn't open because you'd gone up and down too fast. You could lose vision because you had hypoxia, and so on and so on and so on. This shit happened every fucking day that these guys were flying. And that was a really realistic thing. And I sort of think, again, they slightly missed a trick, because if they'd lent into that side of things and gone, this was awful, rather than this is myth, um, they might have they might have revealed a different side of the historical drama to things, particularly given that the veterans are dead now. You can say stuff about that generation that you probably couldn't say to them when they were alive because of the service that they performed. But there's some truths in there. You could have lent into the racial aspect. You could have lent into the futility of what they were doing. They
Yeah.
flew up and down the coast of France for basically 12 months, achieving absolutely naff all except killing a lot of young Americans. They didn't achieve a damned thing. And you could have showed that more, I think. Possibly should do now. I don't know. If it's time for reassessment, that's the stuff you should show.
I think if we end up getting popular enough and we can crowdfund it, I think we should do our own, like, 8th Air Force or like European theater project. Maybe someday.
I'll be Spitfire pilot that keeps turning back while you guys go and die again and again and again. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
just so you know, this asterisk costed them $250 million or something crazy like that.
Dog, I bet we could probably get away with $25,000 if we talk to the right people and just borrow a lot of shit.
Borrow a lot of money. We're going to put it all on Falcon's house, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, be fine. Be fine.
I'll take out a business loan.
Business loan for $250 million. It'll be fine. I mean, actually, I'm not going to shit you. We're going to need a lot more money than that. But
yeah, if we wanted to do it right. I mean, well, there are some movies that actually do a really good job in like a short film context of, just getting the message across. I mean, there was
so the CGI is actually what's really expensive.
CG is a lot more expensive than people give it credit for.
Yeah.
Right, and like I'm on the Masters of the Year behind the scenes Facebook page, and it might have been one of the CG artists or someone who was involved with the production, said that like the decision to model like CG model the B-17F model instead of the G was one that was actually made. Like they were conscious when they made that choice.
So because they made these like,
which I'm fine.
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
okay.
Right.
And well, so it's because they made these like 1-to-1 scale replicas of the bombers that they would taxi around the airfields.
Yeah,
and they made 2 of these, and they were like full scale with like down to the detail. And I hope these go to a museum because if like,
they look awesome.
They're beautiful, like all the details on all the switches and controls and the interiors and everything are like spot on, right?
It's like it came out of the Boeing factory,
right? And the reason why they chose to make F models was because they committed to making F models on those full scale models, so to have consistency, they stuck with that. And I guess like the differences between the B-17F and the B-17G is more than just like a chin turret. Like a lot of people think that a G is just an F model with the chin turret, but like the whole shape of the nose is different.
Yes, but you could have just shoved a chin turret on it and be done with it, right?
There were F models that were converted like that, where they just added the chin turret and nothing else.
Yeah,
I think they could have gotten away with that, but I mean, even still, that's all right. So allow me to put my nerd glasses on here for a second.
Okay.
The B-17G's visual differences. They had a different tailgun turret. It was a proper like turreted setup. It wasn't just like 250 cal sticking out the ass end.
Mm-hmm.
They put proper windows over the door gun positions and staggered them.
Yep.
And that also cut down on a lot of hypothermia issues.
Yep, and sped them up loads, right? Because the wind flow is just much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then obviously the chin turret and different shape to the nose. This is kind of funny though, because the movie Memphis Belle is actually a B-17G that was converted backwards to a B-17F for the movie.
Right.
Well, because of course Memphis Belle happened a bit early. Happened in 43, didn't it? Was it 43?
Yeah, but they committed to using all real aircraft, and it just goes to show, like, if you're going to do the B-17F, you really have to just build one from scratch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. I'm just, I was watching a YouTube thing earlier about, because I can see a book on my shelf right now. So I'm looking at a book called Waterloo by a fantastic author called Tim Clayton. If you've never read it, go read it. Brilliant book. And it prompted me earlier to go and have a look at YouTube videos of the film Waterloo, because why not? And you look at it, and this was a film. Okay, look, it was done in 1970 with the aid of the Red Army. It was filmed in Ukraine, and it looks astounding because it didn't have any CGI. So what they actually got was 16,000 extras, and they arranged them to fight battles. And
oh my gosh.
they taught them proper Napoleonic drill, and they had, because it's the Red Army in the 1970s and they've got more men than they know what to do with, they had a bunch of guys whose only job was to appear in films so they could ride like French Hussars or the Scots Greys or whoever you needed them to ride like, they could ride like that. And you watch it back, and I was watching bits of it and going, compare and contrast with Masters of the Air and the shonky CGI, and you go, don't show us any aerial battles, or show us one and then stop. And do more ground stuff. I don't know.
The human eye is really good at picking up fake stuff. I will say, I don't know. You literally just can't do aerial battles. Like, even back in 1990 when Memphis Belle was shot, you can't do that anymore. Because
no,
we just don't have the flying B-17s anymore. So I get it. They had to do CGI. That's fine.
I get it.
And I think they did a pretty decent job for the budget they had.
I don't think that it would have, like, for what bothers me about the series, I don't think I would have liked it more if they had real airplanes.
No, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. That wasn't the bit that really bothered me. It's the storytelling. Go back to it. It's the storytelling. Get the story right, and everything else flows. You can forgive an awful lot of crap historically if the story's good. And it wasn't good enough. And the whole SOE bit. I mean, what the hell? Cross didn't sleep with an SOE agent?
No. Yeah. He knew one, kind of,
maybe,
according to his memoirs.
I mean, he definitely did go and have a few upright shuffles, because most people did. But would that not be a much more interesting scene? He goes off and finds one of the Marble Arch prostitutes who was there to service the American servicemen exclusively, and does the thing and feels terrible about it later, which is what most men did, right? I mean, that's a more interesting story than he winds up with an SOE. What the hell?
That was weird. Like, I think it's cool that they incorporated, like, the fact that SOEs did exist, but the way they did it was just really fucking off to me.
I mean,
and like the 3 minutes that they gave her later on in the series added another weird 3 minutes of pacing to the already weird, like, episode of scenes seemingly chopped up and, like, inserted into that episode.
See, that's why I'm thinking there was more to the series planned than what we got, because, like, they went through the effort of, like, shooting the train scene and everything, and, like, having her in that setting. It was probably a reuse of the train prior, but I don't know. It was just weird for them to include that. Either you go all the way in and you have the whole sequence filmed in, and you whatever, or you just cut that out.
Yeah. And there are cool stories to tell, right? I mean, SOE in particular. So one of the challenges that SOE officers were all British Army officers, except for the women. So the problem was you couldn't be commissioned into the British Army as a woman, as an officer. Bizarrely, you could be commissioned as an officer into the RAF or into the Navy as a Wren or a WAF, but you couldn't be part of the British Army. Don't ask me why. So they had to come up with all kinds of bizarre workarounds for SOE to work. And effectively, there was this weird concern inside Whitehall that if you sent women into combat, which is what SOE was considered to be, because it was there to be a combative unit, not an intelligence gathering unit, you were somehow in breach of the military code, even though they were going to get shot spies anyway, because they're plain clothes. Whatever. Mental backflips, move on. So you didn't wind up with lots of women working for SOE directly. Indirectly, in France, as resistance members, masses. But actually, airdropped women into France was unusual. It wasn't unheard of, it was just unusual. And some of the stories of those women are completely astounding, because F section, which is the France section, F, no great surprise, right, was riddled with informers. And I forget what it was. I want to say 8 in 10 agents that got dropped in were captured within 4 weeks and killed.
Good Lord.
It was awful, right? I mean, SOE in France was a complete shit show, and it didn't work. But some of those women had these amazing stories in captivity, and met very grisly ends. And I won't articulate what they are because they're genuinely horrific. But the bravery that they showed during that process was incredible. And if you'd wanted to tell that story, you had an opening to do it, and they missed it again. And you're kind of like, do it or don't do it.
Yeah. Don't just allude to this bigger story that could be happening and they just don't tell us about it. Although, in a way, that could get people inspired to do their own research into these things. But I know how people are. Generally, people are not interested in picking up a book anymore.
So just on that, Falcon, if you don't mind, would you mind if I send you a couple of links to pop into the description of this around SOE F section and some of the women, because they are flipping heck, man. Those are some stories. Those are
by all means
hair-raising stories. I'll send you. Cool. Anyway,
that could be a series on its own.
Completely.
Just like a whole series on just like SOE and OSS operations. That'd be awesome.
It would be flipping cool, right? You could tell some cool stuff. And then you got the Jedbras as well as you go into Normandy, who are the sort of behind the lines guys who hooked up with the resistance immediately post Normandy, right? I mean, that's a great story to tell.
I agree. Oh, let's see. What else do we have to cover about this series? Let's talk about the good stuff in episode 9.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay, Operation Chowhound. That was really cool to see depicted.
So sorry, I have to laugh a bit because I was as for those that follow my channel, you might know. So I went up to Bomber Command the other day, and Bomber Command Memorial out front has got this great big beautiful memorial that's been given to them by the Dutch people, and it's all about Operation Manna. And the guide was stood there telling me about Operation Manna, which is the British arm of Chowhound. And he goes, what you've got, and his old wing commander, what you've got to remember, lad, is the Americans don't have any bloody imagination. So we call it Operation Manna, as in the Bible. And what do you think they call theirs? Well, it's bloody Chowhound, isn't it? Idiots.
Hell yeah, brother.
It just made me laugh. But yeah, it's a great story. It's a fantastic story.
And it's a nice scene showing these guys who've just been spending the whole series dropping bombs, like finally being able to help people directly.
Did you guys know about it beforehand?
I did not.
I heard a few things about it. I never like saw it depicted in anything, and I knew, okay, yeah, we dropped some food to people, just like we did the Berlin airlift later on. But I never realized how grand of a scale it was.
It was a really serious thing. It was a really serious thing.
Over 2,000 sorties just by the Americans.
Yeah.
I don't know how many that the Brits flew, but
quite a lot.
Holy shit.
Quite a lot. I think I'm going to quickly look in the Bodleian library for a second whilst we keep talking. I want to say it was about 5,000 RAF sorties and about 2,000 US sorties, I think. But I could be wrong. It was a lot. And they had to kind of do it in a hurry. Yeah, Chowhound, 2,268 sorties. Manna, lots. 3,156 by Lancasters. And they had to drop from all kinds of heights, and they were taking massive risks, really, just flying right over the German defences and in the hope that no one would open fire.
Right, because there was that temporary ceasefire that was in place. I didn't know about that. I thought this was like an immediate post-war thing. But apparently, you know, this is before ceasefire itself. This is like late April. So
yes,
the war's still on.
April 29th to May 7th was Manna, and then Chowhound was 1st of May to the 8th of May. He says carefully as though he knows that off the top of his head and totally not reading off Wikipedia. But I mean,
yeah.
So the background to it is basically Northern Holland. We got bypassed by the Allies for lots of reasons. After Market Garden failed, basically, there wasn't any opportunity to try and liberate Northern Holland, and in particular the Scheldt estuary, which was going to become the first sort of proper place to go and be able to pull supplies into a main port and bring them into Antwerp. The Scheldt estuary had to be recaptured, and the Canadians and the British did that. And the Canadians, to be fair, were by that point pretty shot in terms of, you know, if you're invading somewhere, you lose a lot of boys, right? You lose a lot of lads. And the Canadians were pretty cut up. And there simply weren't any more Canadians, young men, to call on. I mean, literally, Canada had run out of men. Not great surprise. It's not a massive country, and it had sent so many troops over in the first place. And those boys spent the last of their energy taking the Scheldt estuary, which pretty much wiped them out as operational units. And there wasn't any way that the Allies could both go and push into Germany and take Northern Holland. So they made the decision to go and push into Germany, which was the right decision. But the consequences for the Northern Dutch was that they were going to starve because they were cut off. And so this was the only way of getting some food to them. But that winter was horrific for the Dutch. Absolutely horrific.
There's always more to it, huh?
Yeah. You've got to make choices. And in a war like that, I mean, what a horrific choice to make, but you've got to make it. So at least we got something good to come out of it, which was, dropping what food could be dropped. It was about 11,000 tons. It's a lot.
And in the show, it's depicted beautifully with these beautiful CG shots of the bombers all in formation, just dropping these loads of boxes down and flying off into the sunset. And it's just like, it's like the most peaceful thing after all this like death and calamity throughout the series. And it's like this nice little like hopeful bookend. It's not necessarily happy because the conditions are still, it's still war. It's, people are starving.
And Lemon's got to fly with them.
Yeah, he did. Lemon's got to fly. After being stuck on the ground all the time.
So, without wishing to go straight back into the negative, there is another story in there that they flipping missed, which makes me bang my head on the desk, which is Operation Exodus, which is the follow-up operation to bring the POWs home at the end of war. So, particularly flown by the RAF. They put guys in. They basically made the bombers into troop transports to fly them back quickly from mainland Europe, so that they got out of Germany as fast as possible. Lots of good reasons for doing it, right? Because you need to get them out of the camps. There's no fucking food in Germany. You've got to feed these boys somehow, right? You've got to get them home as quick as you can. So we put them on Lancasters, American and British. And it took about 8 weeks, and I think they got 46,000 boys home or out of Germany in very short order. It's a great story, and it would have made a fantastic little bookend. Even if Buck and Bucky had just got on one of the transports and you saw them coming home that way, would have been nice.
Like this is just me, like from a writing standpoint. What if they get onto this Lancaster to go home, and it's the RAF crew that they fought in like episode 2?
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be great.
Would have been great.
Yeah. And then the entirety of the British people would have forgiven the scene of them fighting a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah, that's not the worst bloody scene. It's that stupid flak house scene that makes me just go, oh, fuck off.
I don't blame you guys for being pissed off at how you're depicted in this series.
It's like
the flak house scene?
Yeah, there's a bit where I don't know why there's even a Brit in an American flak house, because they work there, but that's not the point.
Oh, yeah.
He gets the opportunity to say, you're oversexed, overpaid, and over here. Yes, all right, some people did say that, yeah, but not anybody in uniform, because they were really pleased you boys were here.
Yeah. Oh, man, we just need to, look, in our hypothetical rewrite of the show, we just need to have, like, an RAF crew that's just, like, absolute best friends with all the Americans. That would be just, it would be awesome.
Do you know how I do it? I would take one of the operational Lancaster crews or Halifax or Stirling crews that when America entered the war convert into the USAAF. So they start flying with the RAF and then they come over to the 8th.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All sins forgiven. Move on.
And you could even have just to like satiate the ones who enjoy butting heads, you can even have like some new guys who are an American crew come over and start, oh yeah, fucking limeys, and then the American guys have been like with the RAF, just kind of beat their asses.
Yep, that would work. I'd be happy with that too.
Yeah, we weren't Americans and British; we were the fucking allies trying to put Hitler down.
We certainly fucking were. And did a great job of it. I think that's the other piece. Is as much as maybe you can question whether or not it was done as efficiently as it could have been done and the right way first time, which it definitely wasn't. The point is, all of these boys were putting their asses on the line to do a job that needed to be done at that moment in time, and massive respect to them. I'd like to see it depicted better as a result. You know what I mean?
I agree.
Yeah.
Also, another inaccuracy about episode 9, but I'm kind of glad they put it in there, even though it didn't really happen that way. Having Rosenthal see the camps, just to kind of like depict that side of it.
Sure.
I mean, we all know concentration camps are a thing, but it's been a while since they've been properly depicted in any media.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
From a writing standpoint, like it didn't happen historically, but from a writing standpoint, if you're going to do that, they did it at the right time in the episode.
Yeah, I really like that. I thought they'd done it. I thought they'd done it really well. Particularly watching his recognition that this was being done to Jewish people, specifically when he walks into one of those cells and there's a
like Hebrew or Yiddish, yeah.
There's Yiddish, but there's the oh goodness me, my brain's gone completely blank. The candelabra.
Menorah?
What?
Menorah, that's the puppy. Scratched into the wall, and he sort of touches it, and then goes holy, and runs off.
And he realizes, like,
yeah,
because he was a Jewish guy too, and he ended up being on the
Nuremberg trials.
He wasn't Nuremberg. He wasn't a witness testimony.
He was a lawyer.
Kind of implied.
He was a lawyer.
Oh, he was. Okay.
He was a lawyer. Yeah, he was interrogating or questioning for the prosecution members of the Nazi high command, and
he was a lawyer before the war, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. You know what? They mentioned that in the earlier episodes, I think. In like episode 3, when they first introduce him,
he signed up for whatever the I don't know what it was called at the time, but the equivalent of JAG.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah, but yeah, again, that scene didn't necessarily play out how it would have in real life, but it was still I was fine with that. Of all the things that were wrong in that series, that was fine.
Oh, I completely agree. And like he was in with the Russians, and their slightly blasé approach also made sense. Because they were a bit blasé to it, because they'd done, this wasn't their first camp.
Right. Wasn't their first rodeo.
Yeah. They had been to the rodeo before.
Yeah. They had, by that point, already found most of them in the, Eastern Germany, so. And into Poland and whatnot.
Yep. I'm sorry, somebody just reminded me that Patrick Stewart was in the original Dune movie and has sent me a screenshot, which has completely blown my mind. There we go.
He was in Dune, wasn't he?
He was indeed in Dune, yes.
That's funny.
I only saw that movie once as a kid, and I didn't really understand it, but I'd be interested in getting into the whole like Dune thing, because I never read the book. I haven't seen the new movies, but it looks pretty neat.
I haven't. Well, all I know is that the $160 Lego set that comes with the ornithopter and like all the minifigures is freaking sweet, and I want it.
Yeah. Very cool.
Have you seen it, Kyle? Or Falcon?
That's fine. People know my name already. Yeah, actually, no. I've seen some of the Lego sets for that. It looks pretty dope.
Like it's geared so you can like whip out the wings and they're all synchronized together.
Oh, that's cool.
Flap. And like they actually flap like a dragonfly. It's
that's really sick.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's pretty much all we have to say on Masters of the Air. Any news on the Mighty Eighth VR?
Wait.
What?
Let's actually cover episode 9 and what we liked about it and why it's a masterpiece. Like,
I think we've sort of done that, haven't we, Jordan?
Yeah. Well, besides the so on your earlier subject of like dramatic moments, I thought that scene where Bucky pulls a flag up on the
oh, that was badass.
Camp, I thought that was really, really well done.
Yeah. And I very much enjoyed the nod to. So there was famously a situation with a British commander taking the surrender of some German, and I forget which one it was, refusing to shake hands, surrendering, and telling him to basically go fuck himself. And I like that little touch there, because fuck you, I'm not shaking your hand, you Nazi ass.
Yeah.
I'll salute you and tell you to get your men ready for captivity. That's the end of that.
That was neat.
Buck and Bucky reuniting was really heartfelt.
Yeah,
that was when he comes like riding by on the motorcycle.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah,
and the bit where they fly off at the end, I just thought that was the British villagers walking away. It must have been really weird for them when they left. It must have been absolutely bizarre.
Yeah, because I'm sure at one point it felt like the Americans were here to stay, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, you think of these little rural villages. I mean, I don't know if either of you have ever been to Norfolk and Suffolk, but there's a whole lot of fuck all up there. And these little tiny villages, which might be 400-500 people, suddenly with 5,000, young, excitable American service personnel dropped on their doorstep like men from Mars, completely changed their lives, and then flying off home. That'd be pretty
Right.
weird, right?
Yeah, that is weird, and especially for the young boys who would have kind of grown up for 3 or so years of their childhood, just having these guys around.
Well, yeah,
You know,
right.
Yeah.
you start off as a 4-year-old kid, and you end up as like 7 or so, and it's like, oh, they're finally leaving. Wow, I kind of just really knew them as far as back as I can remember.
Yeah.
My grandmother had a housekeeper person that came over and sort of looked after her a bit, who she'd known for donkey's years, who was a Suffolk lady through and through. Mrs. Howe was her name. And she was proper Suffolk. For those who are British will know exactly what I mean. Right down to the additional chin hairs coming out of a mole on the bottom of her chin, which made me, I couldn't help but watch when she spoke. But she talked about being, a young woman. She would have been 17 at the end of the war.
Wow.
And talking about the Americans and how great they were and how sad she was that when they went away. I didn't ask any further questions, but her kids were big and strong. Let's leave it there.
Oh.
I don't know.
Funny how history works, right?
Yeah, it's very strange. It's very strange.
Her kids appeared corn fed.
Bizarrely blonde for Suffolk. Very strange. But anyway, lovely boys. But yeah, just that moment on the surrender, there was a chap called Brigadier Derek Mills Roberts, who, if you've never heard of, look him up on Wikipedia. He's a fantastic chap. His major claim to fame was that Field Marshal Erhard Milch surrendered to him, and Milch made an inappropriate and anti-Semitic comment, at which point Mills Roberts took his Field Marshal's baton and beat him unconscious with it. Which
awesome. Holy shit.
I can't help but feel that they probably should have depicted that, because it would have been funny.
God damn.
Oh, that would have been great.
That would have been some shit.
Yeah, so big respect, Derek Mills. Good man.
Yeah, for sure. Wow.
And again, if you guys haven't seen the documentary about Masters of the Air, watch that.
It's very good. It's worth
watching. There was another documentary about the 8th Air Force that came out maybe 5 years ago.
The Cold Blue.
The Cold Blue, yeah.
That's a good one. Basically, this film crew kind of did what Peter Jackson did for all the World War I footage, and they upscaled it to 4K and cleaned it up and everything. It looks like brand new footage, and they put that out. I don't know where it's being streamed now. It's not on Apple Plus. I don't know if it's picked up anywhere, but if you guys can track it down, anybody listening here, track down The Cold Blue. It's very good.
Okay.
There's a lot of good veteran interviews in it too.
Okay. Cold Blue. I will go and check it out.
Yep, from 2019, I think it was 2018 or 19.
Okay.
It was 19, yeah. And that aside, let's see what other 8th Air Force bits of entertainment are out. Mighty Eighth was re-released by Microprose, and we're getting a full-on VR remake supposedly.
Sounds exciting. Just a quick check there, folks. For anybody that does what I've just done and just Googles Cold Blue, what you will turn up with is a form of gun oil, which I'm sure is excellent, but probably isn't what Falcon's referring to there, or a super glue brand.
Yeah, I can't say. Yeah, no, that's a little different than a B-17.
Yeah, Cold Blue. That's a kind of bluing that you put on gun barrels to restore their.
I imagine it is. Yeah.
Oh, Cold Blue. Yep. Okay. Actually, I'd be down to watch that Cold Blue documentary with you guys sometime.
That'd be awesome. I'd love to do that. Love to do that. Cool.
All right. I think that's pretty much it. Everybody leave your comments and all the likes and all that fun stuff. I'll make sure LordHardthrasher and Jordan's socials are in the description. And LordHardthrasher has a great series on the 8th Air Force. It's been his big thing for the past year or so. Watch all of that. It's fantastic.
We're about to get into the RAF side of things too, because we got to now.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah.
You guys have anything else going on that you want to talk about for our beloved audience?
I've got this.
I do not.
Itch. Oh wait, no, sorry, wrong thing.
Oh. Alrighty then, we'll call it here. Have a good one, folks.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Have a good one.